So today's little project is rear brakes on a 2012 Mazda 5, but it's same to about 2017. First thing is of course to remove the wheel. As you can see, Mazda uses this funny spring mechanism for retracting the brake caliper for the handbrake. So for that you need like a kit like this. Usually you can get a free tool rental from AutoZone or something like that from US or Canadian Tire in Canada, or you can buy it for $40 or $50 on Amazon. To do that you need a number 7 hex. We get hardly any rust, so for me normally the screws just come out. Your experience if you live in a salt belt might be a little bit different, but that is what it is. Now you need to remove this metal clip for the pads. And just set it aside. Remove your caliper. Just wiggle it out. Hopefully it's not stuck. And here we go, you can assess your brake pads. For me, this one is pretty much done, and the inside has a little bit of meat left, but we'll be replacing it anyway. Just swap out the pads with the new one. When removing the pad, this area on the outside, and of course corresponding area on the inside, would be good to give it a good cleaning so your new pads slide easily. Again, I don't have too much rust, so I'm just using a flat screwdriver to give it a cleaning, but if it was really rusted you may need to use an abrasive wheel or sandpaper or whatever to get this area cleaned up so the new pads don't get seized. Don't forget to check the condition of your brake disc. I'm not replacing mine, but if you are, 2 more bolts in the back. They're just 14mm. You would remove it, remove the bracket, remove the disc, put the new disc back on, and rescrew the bracket back into place. Of course, if you have a sandblaster, you can remove the bracket and sandblast it clean and then repaint it. Now onto the fun part of screwing the cylinder back in, because I'll be also doing brake flash. I'll be releasing, it's a 10mm bleeding screw. Of course, if you're in a rust belt, this may not come out, and your best option is to push the brake fluid back into the system. But I'll be loosening this and just letting brake fluid out. Now that your contraption is set up, for me, As you can see, the adapter plate right there aligns with the screws in the back of the piston, the holding plate against the caliper. And now that everything is set up, all you need to do is to gently hold this nut with the wrench while screwing this in. Sorry, trying to get this aligned and filmed at the same time. Just keep screwing. Now, if you can do it by hand, most likely the problem is a defective caliper, like too much rust buildup, and the best alternative is just to replace the caliper. Your goal, now you can tighten the bleeder screw and start working on the reinstallation. Of course, you don't want any kind of crop or rust build up in here, so I'm using a disc brake lubricant. There's a whole bunch of different kinds. Sometimes they come with brake pads. And just apply lubricant here and on the back, all sides. Just helps this brake pad. A little brake pad noise comes actually from the back of the brake pad and a contact. So also apply this stuff roughly in the area where the contact between the calipers be. It just helps with rust build up as well as noise. Now that your brake pad is ready and greased up, it's ready to go in. As you can see, the back brake pad has that funny spring. I just reinstalled mine the same way. Should have never seen it on any previous cars, not sure where it does. But hey, what the heck. Now you just reinstall the caliper back in and move on to the slider pins. Take the old slider pins out and just apply a little bit of grease here. You don't need too much. Clean it first. Don't need to drown it in Don't need to drown it in lubricant, but a bit is fine. This pin's actually a good idea. Every year, just take them out and re-grease it, especially if you live in a rust belt neighborhood. You know, just slide it in. Don't forget, of course, about the second pin. Line it up. And gently just screw it in. Don't just ram it, make sure you don't cross-thread anything. Check everything should be loose. Your brake pads should be good. And now you can start tightening the whole thing. For those people who like the torque specs, I don't have them. I just tighten until it's tight and they don't come loose. It's not like it's an engine where the torque is really critical. Now reinstall your dust caps. Now the next thing is pretty important. Before you do anything, go back to your car and pump the brakes a few times. You notice the first time it will go all the way to the floor. After a few times it will be really firm. And then you can check your handbrake. Yeah, now it's adjusted. So at this point, if you did not open the bleeder screw, you're done. If you did, it's a good idea to bleed your brakes. You can do the old method while one person pumps the brakes, one open the valve. I'll be using a vacuum pump for that. So first thing first, we'll suck all brake fluid out. And of course, add new brake fluid in. It's one of those times you can overfill the reservoir without fear, because you'll be sucking some fluid out from the back. And I'm just using .3 brake fluid, nothing fancy. For one person operation, of course, it's hard to bid the pump. Just hook it up to your compressor, open the brake leader valve, just wait. Whenever you feel you drained enough, the bubbles stop coming, you'll get some bubbles because the air is coming from around the bleeder, so I'm not too worried about it. Let it drain for a little bit, watch the reservoir, make sure not to run it dry. To me, whenever I see less scrub coming out from the brake, I stop, and that's it. Because remember, when we were pushing the caliper out, a lot of the crappy brake fluid is actually inside the caliper, and you already squeezed it all out. So just a little bit of brake fluid that is in line. It's not that dirty because the system is clean, at least to me. I had a tool to check the water in the brake fluid, and it was basically nothing. When you feel you're done, shut it off, clean it up, and move on to the other side. Don't forget to reinstall the spring. Mine came as a new spring. Hopefully your brake pads do as well. I'm using this Wagner QS. That's the part number. You just use your hands or screwdriver, like a flat screwdriver or pliers, to stretch it into position. Now that the spring is in, you're done. You can move on to the second side. You can also spin the disc. It should just, as you can hear, just lightly grab the brake pads, just a tiny bit. But you should be able to spin it by hand without any major restriction. You should not be freewheeling. That means your brake pads will not be grabbing properly. And now on to the next side. So for the brake pads, as you can see, the up and down one is the front, and side to side is the back. So when you're backing off the plate here, the caliper, it doesn't matter which position you leave those two holes in. So now that you wound it back up, the slider pins in a rusty climate, if it's a lot of corrosion in them, just get the new ones and replace them. If you're wondering, I intentionally left the second part pretty quiet. There's nothing really to say. Same thing as the first side. Just take your time, don't rush, and you'll be good. Now everything is solid. Just a little bit of movement, how it's supposed to be. Just a little bit of movement. Just lightly dragging, which is perfect. The spring, set. Now your caliper is solid. So when bleeding breaks, make sure you don't run your reservoir dry. You have these two levels, max and min. Just make sure it's somewhere in that neighborhood. Now you're satisfied, everything is good. Final brake cleaning. Brake wheel tab back on, tire back on, and you're done your rear brakes. Help somebody.